Hey everyone, I'm Paul Garand, CEO here at MedTech Innovator. Welcome to MedTech Innovator Asia Pacific Live. This is our webinar series that are part of the MedTech Innovator program. We're an accelerator, but we're not your typical accelerator. We're more of a downstream accelerator. And by that, I mean that we work with companies that are further along than people with an idea. These are people who've got products in prototype stage or later that have some evidence that their technology is probably going to work. And most importantly, it's going to have a major impact on healthcare. We're here to improve human health. So we look at thousands of companies every year and we select a very small fraction of that to be part of our accelerator. So the companies that you're going to be hearing about and meeting today and learning about are really some of the most compelling companies from innovators all over the world. And in this particular program, we have several, but this one is focused on the Asia Pacific markets. So for those of you who are watching this on YouTube, this is an opportunity to learn a little more about how some of these companies are going to make it to being successful companies with products on the market. And today's discussion is the first of a series of webinars that are designed to educate you and our cohort companies on things that we think are going to really make a difference on their success. And in particular, we're going to be talking today about videos. And videos have become, without question, the most compelling way to market your company. And whether you've got a phenomenal pitch deck, whether you've got a great executive summary, whatever other assets you've put together, I can promise you that your video will be the most compelling tool you have to reach people, because everyone's attention span is pretty short. People, yes, they can read your PowerPoint. Yes, they can read your summary. But in the end, if you've got a video, they're like, oh, thank gosh, you have a video. I can just watch this video. And so the challenge then is, how do you tell your story quickly in a way that is going to be somewhat timeless and is going to mean that can last for a while? You don't have to keep redoing your video. And also, how can you create a video that can be used for different things? Maybe it's for investors, maybe it's for marketing to potential customers, maybe it's for key opinion leaders who might want to join your advisory board, maybe it's for recruiting employees. There's lots of different uses for these videos. And so the key is, how do you make a video that might be attractive to all those people, those different types of stakeholders or viewers? Or maybe you make variations of your video. Maybe you make a longer one, and you can kind of like create some slightly different versions for different people. Everyone will have a different strategy, but we're going to talk today to a couple of our alumni who've gone through this process, who've created videos, as all of the companies that are part of our program this year will be doing, and all of our alumni have done. We've had over 600 companies now in MedTech Innovator. 500 have already graduated. We have 100 in this year's programs. The 500 have graduated, all created these videos. So this is not unique. This is not something we're asking people to do for the first time. They've been doing it for the 11 years that we've been running MedTech Innovator. And you're going to learn a little more about what a couple of the companies have done in this particular task. So with that, I want to go ahead and introduce today's two panelists. So you can learn a little more about them, and then we're going to watch their videos and ask them some questions about their process. So let me start off with Langston. And if you just want to go ahead and just quickly introduce yourself, tell us a little about your company, and then we'll move on to Ash.
Thank you, Paul. So hi, everyone. I'm Langston, founder and CEO of Ophthalmic. My company is a biotech company that focuses on using ultrasound for a variety of biomedical applications. And if you have seen my 1-minute video back in 2021 cohort, one of our key applications is on drug delivery. I'm happy to share more of my experience on how we create a company pitch for various purposes.
All right. So thank you very much, Langston. Let's move on to Ash. Why don't we introduce Ash? You want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your company?
Yeah, so thanks, Paul. Ash, Sapien. Sapien is an at-home diagnostic for mem health, fertility, and sperm analysis, specifically built for the 200 million aspiring fathers around the world who are struggling to conceive and feel stigmatized. Our technology extends the shelf life of sperm from 1 hour to 3 days, making it possible for accurate sperm analysis to be done from the comfort of home. We launched the product in market officially 6 months ago, and now we work with 3 of the largest IVF clinics in the world and are on track to servicing around 45,000 patients within the next 12 months. That's me.
Terrific. All right, thanks for that. So we can bring you both back. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and play your videos. And we'll see if the videos communicate the same story or some version of what you just told us. So let's first start off. We'll go in reverse order again. We'll go to Sapien first. So let me go ahead and play your video. Give me 1 second here, and we'll watch the video. Actually, that's Opharmic. Let's go to Sapien. All right, here we go.
Of the 200 million and growing aspiring fathers that are struggling to conceive, over 60% cannot access fertility testing because it's unavailable, expensive, or embarrassing.
Sapien is a male fertility diagnostic company that allows access to fertility testing without embarrassment and emasculation in the comfort of home.
The downside of sperm samples is that they come with a shelf life of 1 hour from the point of collection, rendering any at-home solution typically unviable. At Sapien, we leverage the world's first regulation-approved technology to extend sperm shelf life from 1 hour to 3 days, making accurate home testing possible using existing postal infrastructure.
At Sapien, we're built to ensure that you never have to get a test in the dark back room of a lab with a 10-minute timer on the door that your doctor will probably make you wait up to 12 months to access, or use current at-home services whose technology destroys the sperm.
Sapien is a frictionless solution available direct to consumer, allowing men and their families to purchase a test kit without having to wait 12 months to qualify for clinical referral.
And imagine this, if you could walk into a store and pick a test up, and if we could make the male fertility test as accessible as a pregnancy test, there is now an opportunity to fundamentally reform the reproductive care industry, reimagining not merely healthcare benefits and economics, but also how fertility impacts both men and women.
We help individuals and organizations better lead and manage change, and now we're excited to offer the...
All right, so that's our first video. Nice job, Ash. I'm going to ask you some questions a little bit about the video. But before we do that, I want to go ahead and play Langston's video. So we get another video in here, and then we'll start getting into the meat of the discussion. So let's go ahead and see the Opharmic video. Here we go. All right.
Many eye diseases, such as macular degeneration, is a leading cause of blindness, which can be treated. But how many times would you happily stick a needle in your eye? For over 8 decades, we have been injecting drugs to patients' eyes with needles, an incredibly long, invasive surgical procedure that often requires repetitive doses. With Opharmic's technologies, Matic Touch, we use a non-invasive, low-energy ultrasound to create stable cavitation to deliver drugs, completely safe, with no risk of infections and scleroing. The diffusion of drugs occurs from the sclera, through the retina, and directly to the macula, which is 10 times more efficient than an injection to the vitreous body. 60 seconds. That's the length of this video, and also how long our treatment will take. We provide an accessible, affordable, and comfortable new treatment for those in need.
All right. So that those are our 2 videos. Great job, both of you. It's fun to watch those again. I know some of you, Ash, yours is more recent. Langston, you did yours several years ago, right? So it's good to see these aging now gracefully. But let's talk a little bit about the process of doing these videos. So I'm going to start off first with just generally speaking, when you go about creating these videos, I think a misconception or maybe a mistake that a lot of people do is they just start shooting. I tell people all the time, like, you can't just start shooting and just hope it works out, or, because people do that. I've seen people literally go out and just start shooting and recording. Okay, we'll edit this later. I always advise people to have a script or have some kind of an outline. So my first question is, did you have a script when you did this? And if you did have a script, who wrote it on your team? So why don't I start off with you, Ash, and you can give us the answer, and then we'll move on to Langston.
Yeah, of course we had a script. It was important for us to think about the 2 to 3 core things that we wanted to communicate to our audience very clearly, because we only had a minute to do it. I'm a lot better without a script in person when I'm having a conversation, but when it has to be deliberate and something that I need to, put on camera and something that will live forever, it's important for me to be very deliberate about it and think about what we're going to say. I wrote the script end to end, but we shared it with quite a few people to get some feedback. Our head of operations flew out to Singapore to do it, so quite a lot of involvement from the two of us.
Excellent. Langston, how about you?
Same case. I mean, echo a lot of things that Ash just said. For us, we obviously do have a script, but when we think of preparing the 1-minute video specifically for MedTech Innovator, we actually think broader, because that's obviously one chance for us to properly make a corporate video. So we think bigger in terms of for a longer video, can we maybe separate different sessions? One maybe specifically for a MedTech Innovator competition for the 1-minute video, but broadly, we also have smaller bits and pieces that will be specifically catered for, say, our partners, investors. So we think about differently. So the actual video, the full version, is around 4 or 5 minutes, if I remember, which we still use that. We are now revamping our company website, but that message or that long video is still there. But we do some edits and make it very specific by thinking of, what are the problems that we're trying to solve and why the audience should care. And then we make it very succinct and very precise that what are our solutions, and to give some very figurative numbers. Like if you see from the video that just shared, like 10 times more effective, 60 seconds is the duration that our treatment lasts. So we're trying to make it a bit catchy and very figurative for audience to grasp tangible ideas as well. So we try to make it simple. But in the longer video, we also try to take into other aspects. Yeah,
that's great. And just as far as writing that script, you already touched on this a little bit, but Ash, I think you said you sent it out for some feedback before you actually started shooting. I guess you're saying, right? And was that just to a couple people? Was there to a lot of people? How much feedback did you want before you actually started shooting?
I think we might have actually sent it out to a good 3 to 4 people. We didn't want too many people giving us feedbacks, but at the same time, we definitely wanted to give it out to enough people that understood the business intrinsically, and also effectively knew what 3 to 4 points we could potentially communicate that would make an impact with our audience. So someone with an understanding of marketing, but also an understanding of the audience that we were going to have a chat with, that was pretty important for us. Didn't take too long, but effectively we had to give it at least a good couple of days for people to digest that information and come back to us with points. I also have a habit of speaking too fast. So it is the case that people will tell me to cut down a lot of information. So it's helpful for someone else to tell me that, as opposed to me speculating on whether or not it's a good idea.
Yeah. And I think it was a good tip you gave before, Langston. I think it was Langston who said it. Just in general, just to I think you both kind of said this, which is just about like kind of having either both, number one, really perfecting your messaging, boiling down to the key points you want to cover. And Langston, you were talking about having multiple versions. This is an opportunity to create your video that, or create a series of videos potentially again. And, Ash, you mentioned team members flying in to be part of this. If you're going to put that kind of effort in things, you want to maximize it as best you can. So I think it's a really good piece of advice, especially because, I said before, these need to be a bit timeless. You might have a video for 2, 3, 5 years. I've seen companies that have used these same videos for, literally over 5 years. They're still using them. But if you're careful in your calculations on how you're coming with your script, you can, say, well, I know in 6 months we're going to have our clinical study done. So you could always say we're clinical stage, and you get another one where you say like we're preclinical, and just have both lines, and then just edit it later on and swap it out. So let's move ahead then. In terms of the actual production, I guess the question is, for the video itself, who actually shot it? Who recorded it? Was it somebody on your team? Was it somebody that you guys were friends with, or sometimes people use students? Who did you have actually shoot the video? So let's start with that. Langston, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, sure. Short answer, we found a local production house in Hong Kong, which has been also helping the big and small corporates to do corporate videos to help do the shooting. But that's not an easy decision to us, because back then we are still like in relatively early stage, and we want to make sure we spend every penny, in a very cost-effective way. So actually, before that, we try to do it like in-house DIY, use like the latest smartphone, iPhone, and some lightings, but we found that the effect is not that timeless and actually quite shaky as well in terms of the picture and the video quality. So after a couple rounds, then we decided, we just let someone more professional do it, and that also helped because these production houses, they are able to really give you some advice as to how to perfect the storyboard. As you saw from the video that we have, we also put in a couple seconds of animations as well, not a very complicated one, but these are the things that production house can do and make those integration quite seamless. So yeah, I think looking back, and especially now, I just saw the video again, I think that decision was one of the best one that we do in terms of how to use video to promote the company.
Okay, and how about you, Ash?
Langston, I have to say, I like your video a lot better, but we filmed ours in-house. We did everything in-house using a smartphone camera. We just had a teleprompter app on our end because we were exceptionally strapped for cash at the time. We hadn't raised around yet, and we just had to be very careful about the amount of money we spent doing it. And we had to fly someone down to Melbourne, which cost around $100 effectively, airplane tickets, and we had to very carefully think about what we spent and what we did effectively. So we just had everybody come in with a smartphone camera, and we got a tripod on our end and a ring light on Amazon for $20, and we filmed it in different rooms. It took a while to film because we didn't have professional support on our end. We had to reconsider lighting and everything else, but it took a while, but it definitely was a lot cheaper.
Good. And just a reminder, by the way, for the cohort companies who haven't made these videos yet and are here in the chat, they're going to get a chance. You guys are all going to get a chance to ask questions. So you're welcome to queue those questions up in the Q&A or to put them in the chat. Either one, Q&A is probably better for me. And I'll either answer them live as we go if they're in the flow. Otherwise, we'll get to them at the end of the discussion. So so going back to the the tools and the things that you guys work with in doing this. I think one of you already mentioned having a storyboard. It might have been Langston. You said the production company brought that that kind of resource with them. Did you use any kind of a storyboard, Ash, as well?
Yes and no. So we effectively wrote the script out. We allocated sections to people, but what we landed on was getting everybody to film every section of the video, and for us to then in post-production think about what sections we wanted people to effectively take part in when we did the video. So we filmed the entire video with different people in entirety.
Yeah. And when you say different people entirely, I mean like you had people do the same lines, each of them, or you just had different sections allocated to different people?
Both. So we actually had different people within the team have different sections, but also at a larger scale, we got everybody to do all sections. So in case we wanted to repurpose, effectively, because in Singapore last year, Bass was the only one that was able to fly in. So we definitely needed Bass to be in the video. So we needed to make sure that we could slice and dice when we needed to. Yeah,
good tip, by the way. We've done similar things here too, where when we're making a video about MedTech Innovator, I'll have all the team members that are going to be in the video say all the same lines. Then we just kind of, can choose who said it best, or, or who do we want to feature. So good idea. That's a clever thing to do. How about you, Langston? Was it all just you, or did you have other team members as well?
So in terms of the script writing, I myself, Sarah, my co-founder, and other team members also get involved. They decide I should be the one to do the speaking because as I have been the face of the company, but at the background, thinking of the 2-3 key points and how to also convey the message in a way that will be broadly appealing to different audience with different backgrounds. So we have different team members joining that, so to give a more balanced view. So we actually test run that, because back then I think we have one or two new recruits who just recently joined the company. So we also run their speech to the new recruits and see whether they understand the essence of what Ophthalmic is, what we try to do. And if they understand, after just that 1 minute pitch and they still remember some of the key points, that we feel that's a good one. So we stick to that. And yeah.
And as far as being the single person in the video, it was just you who was featured versus Ash. It was you, and one of the other founders or other team members. Did you? Was that a choice, Langston, you made, or did you also have one with Sarah? Did you? What is it? How did you decide to do that?
No, so because the whole team and I myself, because I invented technology, so it would be more convincing to also be the face of describing and pitching the technology of the company to the audience. So who should be on the camera? I think that has been very obvious to I myself and the team as well. But in terms of distilling the message, I think that's a concerted effort, which I think my team and myself also did a great job on that. Because 1 minute is actually not a long time, and you can't just flood a ton of information because people just get lost. So there's some time to get it right.
Yeah. And it's, look, we counsel people all the time when it comes to pitching, to not have, 2 team members or 3 team members up on a stage, because it's just, you want to have one person who's communicating the message. And in videos, sometimes, you can go either way. You can have just the one person, as you did, or you can have multiple people on the screen. And, or sometimes people will, even if it's just one person kind of narrating, which I always suggest to be one of the team members, and not, if at all possible, not to be like a voiceover artist or something. I like having the team members speak. Sometimes it's nice to have footage of the other team members in the background doing stuff, building things or whatever, so that you at least get the sense that there's more to it, because it's also an opportunity to communicate the culture of the company too. Is this, in some ways it's a recruiting tool. It always is a recruiting tool. When you're always pitching to anybody, maybe they want to quit their job and come work for you, if you're doing a good job with your pitch. And sometimes that's a nice way for people to go, oh, this company looks fun, or I like these people. So in terms of inspiration, did you guys watch videos of other MedTech innovator companies from the past, or anybody else for inspiration? I'll start with you, Langston.
Yeah, we did. I think the previous year of my cohort, I think, is Excel. We watched that video as well, and a number of others. And I think Excel ones really inspires us, because the flow is very natural. You can follow the pace. You can easily grasp the key message that Sebastian and his team member try to convey. So we feel that simplicity is very important, because again, it's just 60 seconds, it's not a long time. And you just want to make sure that you get the attention of the audience and just get 2 or 3 really key and core messages across. So we try to use that as our principle, and in terms of how we draft the script. So the Excel's one was really inspiring.
Excel did a great video. The 2 Sebastians there in the company, they're both really strong. One of the Sebastians is a marketing guy, and he was, I know, instrumental in all that in the creation. But dynamite company, and definitely I agree, worth watching that video. How about you, Ash? Did you watch any other videos for inspiration?
Likewise, quite a few actually. We got a few recommendations from the team at MedTech Innovator, but we also watched the Ophthalmic video last year as well. That was pretty great. I think it definitely helps for us to watch a few videos, because it allows us the opportunity to think about what they had to think about when they had to pitch to the audience that we were going to pitch to this year. But it was relatively straightforward, both videos from MTI and also videos from other people in our network that built 1 minute videos in the past. What the benefits were, what the mistakes that they committed were, so we could effectively avoid them. So not just videos as examples, but also had conversations with quite a few people.
Yeah. And we talked a little bit about this already, but I want to make sure it's clear for everybody. So how many people were ultimately involved in your company in creating these videos? And maybe you can also tell us how many people were in your company at the time, in terms of team members, and how many of them were involved in doing the actual or part of the video. So Ash, how about you start?
we had 3 people involved in making the video, but we only had 3 members in the team. So effectively we had
100%.
the team on board. Yeah. We needed all the support we could possibly get. We needed people to give us feedback, hold the light around, and potentially help us with communicating and rewriting messages.
So you had external people too who weren't part of the company helping, or just the 3 team members?
The external people were just giving us feedback on the script and the videos, but the internal guys were the ones effectively doing the video with us.
Yeah. And by the way, to your comment before about using, phones and everything, I've seen some incredible videos done entirely on phones. There's feature films that have been shot on phones. So, it's all about like the lighting and the tripods and all that kind of stuff that really makes a huge difference. But at the same time, professional equipment can be really helpful, as Langston mentioned as well. How about you, Langston? How many people were in the company at the time, and how many were involved in making this?
I think back then we have around a total of 7 people, and 3 of them, including myself, were fully involved in drafting and crafting the company message for the broader corporate video, and we then added that 1-minute version for MedTech Innovator.
Okay. And what about, kind of as a team building exercise? Did you guys find this to be something that, as a team, you got a lot going on in the company, you're trying to do other things, raise capital, build your product. Did you find this was something that, was a good team exercise as well? Ash?
Absolutely. We had Bass, who traditionally lives in Sydney, come down to Melbourne, and we don't get to meet each other quite a lot because we work remote. Not just that, but also everybody is a bit vulnerable when you start filming videos in front of a camera and you make mistakes and you look stupid. So it definitely is beneficial to have the rest of your team around, so you get to recognize that, there's things that we can work through. And it was definitely a good exercise for the entire team to be part of. How
about you, Langston?
Oh, definitely, because the background is actually in my office, and I was shooting while everyone is remaining silent and with all the lights off, so the whole team actually knows what I'm trying to say during the 1-minute video. And I think that's a good experience for them as well, because they get to also be in the front row seat and see how to really distill a company message in such a short period of time, try to articulate that to a broad audience. So it's quite eye-opening for them, because we got new members from engineering side, from the regulatory side, and they don't have much experience about saying something in such a short time in a very succinct way. And that afterwards, we also got some debriefing with them as well. And that has been quite helpful, getting people aligned on what we're trying to do and how to convey message in a very professional and effective way.
Yeah, thanks. I've definitely gotten feedback over the years from our CEOs that doing the video was like a really great opportunity to bring the team together, who didn't always get to be together, as you said, or some of you said that it's a really make sure everyone's understanding the messaging. Sometimes people are like, oh, I didn't know that's what we were all about. I'm working on this little component over here, and I generally had an idea, but I've heard people even give that kind of feedback, like it was a really good chance for everybody to go, okay, this is what we're about. So that's great. What about being on camera? I know that it's not always a natural thing. It's one thing to pitch, just talk like we're doing right now, have a discussion. But what about, recording something, especially that, you scripted? Was that challenging? Was that hard for you? I'll start with you, Langston, on that.
Well, I mean, it's not easy. I gotta say, every time when I was in front of, on the stage or like speaking from camera, I always feel nervous. Actually, for that 1-minute video, I think we have taken 3 or 4 takes before I get to say the intonation, articulation right, because I don't want to rush it through and make the right pauses and right emphasis on key messages. But I think practice makes perfect, and that also helps you to internalize the message that you want to convey as well. So yeah, it took me quite a few practices, but yeah, I think that's just a learning curve for everyone. You will get more and more chance as you're completing the cohort to be speaking in front of different people, investors, professionals, partners as well. So I think that's a good chance, for practicing.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's something that I talk a lot, as you guys know, I think, and I'm on stage a lot and all that. But when it came to recording videos, I just mess up my lines. I forget what I'm saying. Whatever it is, getting the right intonation, as you said, Langston, can be hard. How was it for you, Ash?
I can echo a lot of what you both said. I'm pretty okay with being on stage, but I'm terrible in front of a camera. And there are a number of apps that allow you to effectively run scripts alongside filming the video. And we used a few of those apps to effectively avoid us having to memorize the script, because I can get really hung up on words that I need to say if I memorize something. So that was really beneficial, but you're right in that it takes a few takes. It will take a good 15, 20 takes before you get it right. And it will take a while, but the more you practice around the people that are going to be in the video with you, the more comfortable you get, and there's really no way around it.
Yeah, you mentioned teleprompters, so and apps. So I know I've used there's like some free, like you can literally Google like free web-based teleprompter, and you find a little web page that you type in your script, and I have like a little screen sometimes I put up behind my camera, and then just hit the button on my space bar and the words go by. Did you use something on your phone, or what did you guys use for teleprompters? Ash?
Yeah, we use something on the phone. The key to it, I think, is understanding how quickly the words are going to move and trying it a few different times, understanding the pace with which you're going to communicate. It can get quite tricky to use a teleprompter, but as you practice, I think it would get pretty okay. We use a phone app that was free on the App Store.
Yeah, and Langston, you said was it one that your production team brought, or did you have more of a web-based or a phone-based one?
Yeah, so the production team, they have their own teleprompter, so we use theirs. But internal practice, we use some free online source as well to to mimic the actual process and practice, like where to look to the camera or not look into the camera, that sort of tiny little things. So we practiced that before the production house came. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you look at, that's always a choice, right? Sometimes people like to look right at the camera. Sometimes it's, the side view, when you're talking. Sometimes it's both, like, I think you had both angles, right? Langston, for yours, I think you had, like, were they shooting two cameras at the same time? One on the front, one on the side, or do they just do two different takes?
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, they have two cameras. So most of the time they ask me to look at one of the cameras, the other one, then they can do the editing and then put those different angles in different sections. Yeah.
How about you, Ash? What did you guys do for that?
We just spoke to the camera. We had one phone in front of us on a tripod, so it made perfect sense to just follow that.
Yeah, that makes it pretty easy, right? And how about editing? So who edited? Did you guys edit yourselves as well, Ash? Or did you have somebody else edit?
We edited ourselves as well. All the animations, all the editing was on our own. The voiceover at the very beginning was an AI tool that we got on the internet for free again, Well Said Labs. Relatively straightforward process. It takes a while to edit things because everybody's got an opinion. Everybody's got a video that they really like and other ones they don't. So I think it takes a while, but it's we spent a few hours on iMovies and Canva.
iMovie and Canva, that's what you use to edit iMovie, mainly. How about you, Langston? Editing?
So editing was mainly done by the production house, but I myself and Sarah were heavily involved in what makes sense to include or not to include in a 1 minute pitch. I think one of the earlier versions that we worked on, we didn't have that animations because we at first wanted to see whether we can convey or describe our technology verbally, but we feel that might be a bit hard for audience to follow. So instead, we use a very simple 2D eye model, as you saw, and just tiny little balls that mimic the drugs that flow to the back of the eye. It's not a complicated animations because we are running on a tight budget as well, but we thought, a picture speaks 1,000 words. So we decided to add that in. So the actual work was done by production house, but the idea in terms of message flow, you have to come from the company because the editors don't know what message they should be putting in. So we work on that mostly with the production house.
Yeah, no, that's great. We've done something similar here too. When we've edited videos, sometimes we've had outside people do their first cut and give us something rough. So we've got something to work with, and then we tweak it here internally and play around with it and, cut little pieces out or add things back in. I think it's nice to have that kind of control ultimately over your content, or have the ability, if you have to keep sending it back to the the company and saying, how can you guys make that little tweak, then, you know, the money adds up if you're paying, and certainly the time, you know, you lose control. So that's nice if you can. So what about background music? You know, choice of music, and you know, was it free, or did you guys have to pay for music? Ash, how about you?
We got the free ones in Canva. We do pay for Canva Premium, so effectively it is paid, but we didn't go ahead and pay for anything else on top of it.
Yeah, how about you, Langston?
So the production house found some also free sources that can add in, and we think you don't need like some very fancy background music as well, because the messages and the speech is very important. So we try to tell them this is not like the very important aspect that we care about. So we let them take the pick.
How about you know, other content like stock photos, video footage? Did you, you know, Langston, you mentioned, you know, doing some more simple 2D kind of animation. Was there any other? I can't recall if there was any stock footage or anything else in your video. Was it all yours?
So it's all ours. We provided to the model that we can find. I think also on stock photos as well. And then the device that we show as well, touching the eye, that was from our internal drawings. And the drops will also do a very simple doodling and say a mimic thing like a tiny blast of drop molecules to make it simple for broad audience to get a sense of what we're trying to do.
Yeah. How about you, Ash?
We had a
Stock
couple of backgrounds that was stock images, but that's really about it. We just got them from Unsplash.
So yeah, that's a great resource. And it's funny because in the short period of time since last year, now we have all these AI generators that, you know, I think are going to completely change the way people, you know, approach the idea of stock photos or backgrounds or anything that, you know, you could go into one of the image generators or even the video generators and just say, you know, I need some footage of little balls going into the eye or whatever you want to, you know, what you want to prompt it, and probably get something that looks pretty terrific after a couple of tries. So, you know, I think that'll be interesting to see this year's companies if they make use of it. I would recommend it as an alternative to just taking the same stock photo and stock video that I think a lot of people do. So definitely something to think about for future videos. Something else, you know, I think a lot of people talk about is, you know, you've got your edit you did internally or whether you used a production company. The question I always ask is, okay, then, you know, do you run draft versions of those edits by other people before you sent in your final one to us for the competition that we have, or did you just keep all that, you know, internal? Did you run it by external people at all? So I'll start with you, Langston, on that.
I think we have shown the 1-minute video to the assigned mentors back in my cohort to get feedback as well, to see whether, because they know what we do, and they can also judge, you know, with the video, are we conveying a similar message, or would it even make it more confusing in a way that, oh, they didn't get a grasp of what farming is about. So we just run it through with the mentors that we have back then. And internally, we also play that to our team as well to really see whether they also feel these are the key messages that we should be mentioning in that 60 seconds. So I think we did around 2 rounds of feedback. Then we feel, okay, most of the feedback seems very positive, and some of the suggestions that we also take into account, for example, adding the short animations to describe how the drug goes with our ultrasound tech into the eye. So that was the final tweak that we made, and then we feel it's okay, it's good to go, then we submit it to the 1-minute competition.
Ash, how about you?
We did 2 things. So we effectively sent it out to 2 advisors who gave us some feedback on it, and we work out of a co-working space. So we just walked outside to give us some feedback. That worked at video production companies.
Great. What about IP? What about legal? One of the companies here in the cohort was asking about that. Did you run the videos by attorneys at all to see if you were revealing anything in the video? Langston?
We didn't do that, but we are very careful as to how we articulate the ultrasound technology. in such a public domain. So we feel that's generic enough, but also giving sufficient detail at a level that the audience will be able to grasp. Okay, so Opharmic is about ultrasound, it's about drug delivery to the eye, and I think that's it. So we purposely didn't dive in, say the tech, because I saw also one question, oh, we haven't mentioned the tech at all. So that's kind of the balance that we decided to take. We didn't dive into the specifics of the tech, but just on a very high level.
Yeah, you, Ash.
Same with us. We don't dive into the specifics of the tech at all. We worked with a reg consulting firm really early in the process to give us a set of approved language, and we only use that language every single time we pitch the company.
Great advice. Anything that's going to be in the public domain, like a video or presentations, you got to run by someone who understands your IP, know-how, whatever it is. I always suggest that to people. So that's great. And again, if you don't get into the tech, then you're not going to worry too much about it. But I've seen people reveal things in their videos unintentionally that now they're making a public disclosure, and if you haven't filed your IP, that can be problematic. So that's good. How about one of our companies asked a little bit about editing. So they said, it's difficult in your final editing, making this 1 minute or whatever your target length is difficult, and deciding what to drop and what to keep. How did you get into that kind of decision making? Any principles that you guys have? Any advice on how you decided what to cut out and what to keep when you went through that process? So Ash, I'll start with you on that.
We did most of our cutting out before we started filming and editing the video, because it can get quite difficult to cut things out after you've already set it in video, especially if it's not in the right spot. We did a few dry runs and we cut the script down quite a bit, and we had to refilm a few different times, but that was really it. I think focus on your script, think about the 2 to 3 core concepts that you want to discuss without really going overboard, and do multiple dry runs.
Yeah.
Same for you, Langston, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, exactly. So we timed the script. At the script stage, we try to cut short or fine tune the messages when we are still, preparing the script. Quite a few times I remember we are running at like 70 seconds, 90 seconds. Then we try to further, shrink the content, and then like 60 to 61 seconds, then we adjust the pace. And then when we kind of get it right around like 59, 60 seconds, then we feel comfortable. That's where we then start getting the production house to work on the filming, because otherwise it will be too challenging, too time consuming to do the editing on the video level.
Yeah, we just as a reference for those who are watching, whether you're in our cohort or not, we as part of the competition that we do, which is one of the many competitions we have in the program, is the video competition, and we do take the length of the video into the criteria for the final selection of kind of the finalist videos as we go through that, and we penalize a little bit videos that are too long. So we do look at the video length. It's not a huge criteria or huge factor, but it is something that we look at in generally as a company at MedTech Innovator. We try to say, hey, the closer you got to 60 seconds, the better. So it doesn't mean that we always have companies that wind up winning who sometimes have a video that's 90 seconds or longer. It doesn't have to be exactly 60 seconds. But we found like hitting that 60-second mark in general is a good goal, because it is, it's one of those attention spans. It's like a phone number with 7 digits. There's only so much, time that the human brain has to retain things. If you get too long, people start to forget. Keep it like around 1 minute seems to be a pretty good target. So I like that. But that said, having a minute 30-second video or so, sometimes even longer, if you have more things you need to communicate, is just fine. And maybe you just kind of create 2 versions, one that's 60 seconds and one that's 90 seconds. And you can decide later which ones you want to use for, what situation. A question that everybody asks and is in the back of everyone's mind always is, what did this cost you to do dollar-wise? I know, Ash, you said, You did it all in-house. You spent $100 to fly one of your team members in. Were there any other costs for you, Ash, besides that $100 plane ticket?
We had to get a tripod and a ring light, and I think total we
Okay.
probably spent around $150 doing the video.
All right. How about you, Langston?
So I mean, our cost is around 4,000 US, but then just bear with me because we are not spending this money just for the 1 minute video. We obviously want to make a good 1 minute video, but we had a broad discussion internally, and we thought that's also a good opportunity for us to have a better overall corporate video, like a longer versions, and then maybe we make different edits, say for our pharma partners, for investors, or general public, so that like 4,000 US is covered for like 5 or 10 minute full footage, including all the editing and all the tech support. So we feel that's a good investment to make. So that's the decision that we made. Although we are not like very rich in cash back then, but I think, you know, conveying the right message to the right group of people through different channels is key. One of the key to success, especially in early stage, not to mention like in a tough market environment as well.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I think having a really solid video is absolutely worth spending some money on. I've seen people do incredible high quality videos for almost nothing. Sometimes they have they'll have a student team, like they'll go to their local university and say, hey, let me talk to the film department, and they'll get a student volunteer team to come in, and they've got all the equipment, and they've got that for free, and professional cameras and lighting and all that stuff. And other times people spend, as you did, a little bit of money and create, and it's worth spending that money to create the video. The most I've ever heard anyone spend was like 20,000 US, and that's a lot to spend. Maybe not as compared to if you were J&J or somebody making a video, you're probably going to spend a lot more than that. But I think, having had 500 companies create these videos so far, that, with the maximum somebody's spending was like 20 grand. These videos are some of the best, if you go back and watch them, and for anyone who's watching this on YouTube as well, you can just go in and type in MedTech Innovator, either best video competition or best MedTech Innovator videos. Either way, you'll find playlists of these videos. They're amazing. I mean, super high quality. You've only seen 2 today, but they're absolutely worth watching. Some of these videos, you go, I can't believe these were done for less than 20 grand, for 5 grand, for 2 grand, for 500, for $100, whatever it is, for free. So definitely you don't have to have a large budget. I hear that's a big misconception. I hear people all the time, they'll watch your video, Langston, they'll go, oh, you guys must have spent a fortune on that. You really don't have to spend a huge amount of money. So maybe a couple last questions here before we get to Q&A. One question that's really important, I think, is the amount of time that you spent. So if you were to estimate how many hours in total you and your other team members collectively spent in creating the video, Ash, what do you think you guys spent?
I think including all the research and the editing, probably a good 8 hours across 2 to 3 days. Yep. So I think if you consolidate it, it would take you a day end to end.
Yeah,
that'd be a pretty tight schedule if you could do that in a day. How about you, Langston? How much time do you think you guys spent?
I think similar to what Ash mentioned, around 8 to 10 hours. The shooting, if you do every fine tuning at the script stage, then I remember the shooting we just complete in say 1.5 hours, which is pretty quick. Get every shot right, and for the full corporate video, as I mentioned. But the earlier portion of the time has been spent on fine tuning the messages and make sure the length, the pace, the intonation is right. So the practices takes even more time. I think that's the important one.
How about, are you guys including the scripting in the first place? Was that part of your 8 hours, Ash? Or did it take longer, you think, to do that?
It definitely was part of the 8 hours. I think scripting, we wrote a few dry first versions, and we just had to wait for people to come back to us with feedback and then changing it each time. It's a 60-second video. You could do it pretty quickly without overthinking it.
And you said you spent like 3 days, maybe, stretched out over 3 days, right, in the process.
Yeah.
Is that all it really was end to end? It was about 3 days from the time you started scripting to shooting to editing and all that, or was it longer?
It was 3 days, including all the feedback we got from people.
Great. How about you, Langston?
So yeah, at that time I will include scripting as well, but from say the very beginning to we finish shooting, I think that takes around 2 weeks because we wait for the feedback, internal practices, get a production house over to my office, and we do some shooting and editing. So like maybe each day around 1 or 2 hour max. Commitment on that. So I think that's manageable, but it's really looking back at the video, it's still relevant. It's still the key messages. It's still what we do. So spending some time to rethink through what we try to convey, I think that can be a very timeless video to be used for quite some time.
Great. So good range in there, right? Between a couple days, 3 days, and several weeks. But I think either one is certainly fine. I've seen companies say that they're, at the extreme, from the time that they started writing and looking for who was going to shoot it or edit it to the time they shot it to getting around to editing it and finishing it. The most I've ever heard someone say was about a month total elapsed time. I think most of them average something closer to Langston's couple weeks of, we drafted a script, and then we got a crew, and then we edit it. So I think my general advice for those watching would be make sure you block out the time. If the video is due in September, or the video is due in October, or whatever the date is that the video is due, don't wait till the 2 days before, the 3 days before to finish it or to try and start writing it. Start way in advance and give yourself the time, because it could take weeks or it could take a month end to end for it to be finished, and for something that you're happy with. Because we've had companies that I know when they turn their video in, they email me afterwards, or Frederick or somebody else on our team, and say, I'm really not happy with that video, but we ran out of time, and this is what all we had time for. And then they really regret it later because they realize they could have started a month earlier, or 2 months earlier, or weeks earlier. I know it's hard to do, but I definitely recommend it. So I want to get into tips and tricks, any other things, first let's start with resources. So, we've talked about tripods and ring lights and some other, having some kind of a transcript or a teleprompter, app or something. Any other tips that you guys would want to share with the audience of whoever's watching this on things that help make this easier for you? Any kind of, let's start with resources like tools or props or anything. So Ash, I'll start with you on that.
The only other thing I can really think of is the AI voiceover we did at the very beginning, a free trial with Wellsaid Labs. It's quick. You get a good 90-minute trial, and effectively you can get quite a few videos done or audio messages done with it. And it's the closest we could find to someone doing a real voiceover. Yeah,
good tip. And as I said, I think we're going to get a lot more AI use in the coming months and years here. How about you, Langston? Any other resources or tools that you suggest?
So for our case, I would say if you have a prototype or a product that, assuming there's an IP clearance that you feel comfortable to show, I think that will also help convey the message in a much better way. So that's also within the internal discussion when we try to fine-tune the script. That's something that we hear multiple feedbacks from, say, our internal team, also from the advisors as well, that if you can just briefly show the product or briefly have some pictures that describe how it works, then it's much easier than spending 2-3 sentences explaining the tech or the science behind. So that's, I think, the key things to help, especially in the medtech space. I'm sure most of the companies or people who are watching, there must be a very important fundamental technology behind. So using this sort of animation will help you articulate your message very effectively.
Yeah, great. I would say in general that having well-defined script and and whether it's whether it's a teleprompter, just basic things like that make just a massive difference and are well worth investing in that for anyone who's listening. These are really important resources, and all the other things are great, but ultimately, knowing what you want to shoot and having the words in front of you and not searching for the words and not doing it, because it just gets so frustrating if you don't have that done, or just so important. And again, the AI tools, I think we should all be exploring those. And I didn't ask before, so let me just quickly ask Langston, since you work with an outside company, how did you find them?
Oh, so it was a referral from my alma mater, because we kind of thought like a really full-scale production house. So we look around, I reach out to my university and see whether they have some recommendation, whether there's also say alumni group running this sort of production house. So it turns out there is. So it was like a bit of a connection, a friend of a friend of a friend who knows this production house. So we get a few quotes also from, say, very commercial ones, but those are really out of budgets. They can easily charge a lot of money just to give maybe a very short shooting period for you, maybe 2 hours, but charge much more. So we decided to go with this friendly referral, and I think it works great. Yeah, they are very passionate, energetic, and they even made some comments and they say, hey, this might be a bit too complicated because I, as a layperson, I can't even understand. So could you think of another way? So I think that's also, by surprise, a very good feedback that we can get, and that helps us to further fine-tune the message as well.
Yeah, no, I think you're right on that. And your tip also about the product, I think, is also a really good one. I use the same advice about presentations in general. Anything I believe that you can do to convince people that your product is real is good. Because, and there's nothing wrong with a rendering. But I tell people, even if you have like an ugly prototype, show it, show something that show people working on the bench, show something that at least hints that you really have a product and it's not just an idea, because that is what, just a rendering alone sometimes will leave people with the impression that, oh, they don't really have anything. This is just a concept. Again, not that there's anything wrong with renderings, and a lot of people use them. I'm just saying that the more you can show something that looks like an actual product, I think is better.
Yeah.
So two last questions here. Number one, any general tips or anything you want to share? So again, I'll start with you, Langston, this time. Any other tips or tricks?
I would say, don't do this just for the competition. Obviously the competition is important, but try to take this as a good chance to rethink through, what will be the things you would try to promote your company to general public. I think that will also help you set the tone right and really focus on what you try to convey to, say, people who are from the investor background, from healthcare practitioner background, or from partner side. So make it timeless. I think that's key. If you just do it for the competition, then you might, the focus might not be right, and you might not getting the maximum value of it. If you win, obviously, that's very great. But I think this is also very important. As the company grows, you want to make sure you get the key messages right, and that strike the chord among different people from different backgrounds.
Ash, how about you? Any tips or tricks?
To add on to what Langston was saying, actually, 1 minute isn't a lot of time. So I just think very carefully about the 2 to 3 core messages and don't overwhelm the video with too many things. And also suppose very carefully about cost versus quality versus outcome, and what you want to prioritize and what exactly you want to use the video for. If you're going to pay for it, you might as well just get really good use out of it.
Okay. And then the last question here, was there anything you would do differently? Now you look back on the video and you go, oh, now that I'm watching this, here's what I would have done differently. Your videos were great, but I'm just curious, is there anything looking back now that you wish you had done differently? Now that you have had time to reflect on it. I'll start with you, Ash.
I think if I had to revisit, the one thing I'd definitely do differently would be more clear about the tangible impact and applications of the product, as opposed to describing all of its features. So I think today, I haven't finished thinking about it entirely. I haven't completed my thought, but if I had to say something today, it would be along the lines of 30% of IVF clinics in Australia use Sapien and have found the ability to screen for IVF failures have increased by over 8 times. Just because I think it helps people really understand what the real life use case of it is going to be, over just traditionally saying we have X, Y, and Z features.
Good advice. How about you, Langston?
I mean, looking back, I remember exactly how I felt when I take that video when I do the shooting. If I can do it again, will try to be more relaxed because I remember looking at the camera, I was like that nervous. Yeah.
You can't see it. You can't tell that you were nervous. You look great. But yeah, be relaxed. It's hard to do, as you said, but that's good advice. And I really think I think that, for those again who are watching this on YouTube and who are not part of our program, I highly recommend watching those videos again that we just watched. You can just go to medtechinnovator.org and then go to MedTech Innovator, click on the live from the navigation bar. You can go to medtechinnovator.org/live to get there. It'll give you these videos from our overall program. But if you also go to the about the program, so if you go to the US program, the Asia program, BioTools Innovator as well, there's a section on company videos. It's so worth going back and watching these for anyone who's thinking about making a video, because there's a lot of them and there's a lot of terrific ones. And we have a nice interface that lets you kind of quickly navigate through them. So I think it's worth it. You could take an hour and sit back and just hit play and they'll go one after another for a particular year. I think it's highly worth doing. So for the people who are in our program, who are part of our accelerator, you guys are going to stick around. We're going to get to some Q&A. For those of you who are watching this on YouTube, we're going to end this portion here. And as I said, recommend that you go to medtechinnovator.org/live to learn about the overall program and see the videos for the other webinars in our series, where you can learn about investors, you can learn about product development, about regulatory reimbursement, market access, and many other things. So I hope you'll join us for other webinars in the future.